Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it, being on Balance of Power. I just love the title of the show and being a Navy commander and having a chance to talk with you today, Kaylee. I get this question a lot about the difference in size of the Chinese fleet versus the U.S. fleet, shipbuilding capacity differences. And I just want to assure you and others that will be listening that I don't worry about it too much. We do consider China to be our pacing threat. We are concerned with their shipbuilding capacity, but, there is nothing that beats the quality of the U.S. Navy warship. There's nothing that beats our capability, our technology, and most of all, our sailors that are on board and crew those ships. That just really is our true advantage. So while, we are playing a bit of catch-up on shipbuilding capacity, I don't think a strategy for the U.S. should be trying to match that. It's really our ability to have quality over quantity is really a better strategy for how we fight.
Well, it's interesting, Admiral, and we do welcome you to the program. It's great to see you here. As we look at the parade of ships kicking off Fleet Week in the Hudson, it does bring that technology right in front of a lot of people who might not be as familiar with it as those who are in the defense space. The shipbuilding capacity, though, of the U.S. is something that the Trump administration has addressed with an executive order calling for the revitalization of shipbuilding. What is it that we need?
Well, I'm thrilled that the Trump administration has done it. The president is really emphasizing it. This is commercial shipping. This is Navy shipping. This is all types where the U.S. has really divested in that capability, not so much with our warships, but in commercial shipping. So first of all, that capacity does need to increase, and we need to become more self-sufficient in our own, maritime services and not be so reliant on international building. But, from our warships in particular, we have a lot of ships on contract, and we are working hard to emphasize with those defense industrial partners that build those for us to actually deliver those on time and get back on track, as well as the maintenance contracts that we have. Those need to improve in their performance as well. So this emphasis on this and putting some heat and light on the shipbuilding industry and our industrial partners that work with us is extremely important for the U.S. to exercise our power projection globally, I think.
Well, Admiral, here in Washington, we were tracking yesterday the passage of the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill in the House of Representatives that has a lot of President Trump's priorities in it, but also included an additional $150 billion in defense spending. Knowing that this administration has outlined other objectives, including the building out of this so-called Golden Dome, are you expecting the fleet to directly benefit from that additional funding? Is that funding, frankly, adequate, or is more needed?
Well, I do think it's adequate. I really am very appreciative of the administration emphasizing defense spending and getting the budgets right. My job at U.S. Fleet Forces, our Atlantic Fleet, really emphasizes readiness, and readiness costs. And to have a military that's expeditionary like the Navy, on call, ready to go worldwide, globally, requires a high level of readiness. And that's across our ordnance capacities, our parts, supplies, and of course the training of our sailors. So I think the budget's appropriate, and the Navy's going to get a part of that, and that's going to help us sustain that. I do think the Golden Dome, in particular what you mentioned, that the Navy will also be a major player in that as well. The Navy is what protects our homeland from its two approaches, the Atlantic and the Pacific. And so the threats don't just come from intercontinental ballistic missiles, they can also come from submarine-launched cruise missiles. And that's where the Navy plays a prominent role in making sure that our homeland is protected against those threats.
Well, as we consider readiness, Admiral, we have to talk about recruitment. It's something that we have heard this White House and the Defense Secretary talk about quite a bit. You're aiming to recruit a little over 40,000 new sailors this year in 2025. The Naval Institute says you're seeing the highest recruitment numbers in 2 decades. Will you exceed that goal?
Sir, we are already exceeding that. We had a banner year last year, and a little over 40,000 last year. We got that goal this year. Right now, we're on pace. We are 4,000 sailors over where we were last year, and so we are enjoying record recruitment. And the recruiters across the country are just doing an incredible job to do that. It's very hard work. We are all in the same demand for this talent in our country. And when only less than 1% of everyone in our country serves, you can imagine a population of those that can do what we do for a living is quite small. and across the armed forces, we're all in demand for those. So I'm very proud of our Navy recruiters to achieve that. I would also mention to you that our retention is at a record high. So when we get folks in, they really enjoy what they're doing in the Navy. And I think that's tied to our incredible mission. And the Navy is out there, the away team, and so I think we're enjoying record retention as well. When you combine those, we're going to put a real dent in some of the gaps at sea that we have had over the last few years and really chip away at that to get our wholeness back with respect to manning our ships.
I feel like I should disclose, Admiral, that I am the daughter of a naval aviator, and I know that he loved nothing more than flying F-14s. He spent a lot of time on these very vessels we're talking about themselves. But I want to talk about active service members who are finding that they have had their deployments on carriers and other supportive vessels extended, specifically in the Red Sea, as the U.S. has been engaged up until recently with Houthis, an Iranian proxy that, of course, was quite disruptive in the Red Sea in particular in recent years. The Truman is now heading home, but as we considered the multiple F-18s that actually fell off that carrier, tens of millions of dollars in aircraft lost, was there an over-deployment problem with the Truman or with anyone else stationed in the Red Sea? Is that why a truce had to be reached with the Houthis?
You know, all great questions. You know, our carrier strike groups project power and dominate and control sea lanes like no other thing there is. I mean, that's why the president, you know, when a crisis happens, where's the nearest aircraft carrier and the nearest strike group? And high demand for aircraft carriers. Because of that, in our force structure currently, you know, we have essentially about a 3.0 presence worldwide, globally, all the time. And so we shoot for about a 7-month deployment. So every 36 months, we'd like to see our carriers and the strike group, cruisers and destroyers deploy for about 7 months every 36 months. When those get delayed, that does take a toll on our readiness. It makes the return maintenance availabilities, as we call them, maintenance periods, longer. It's harder on the ships. It's hard to recoup from that extended deployment from the impact it has on that readiness level. You know, it impacts people's lives as well. People think they're coming back at 7-month point and they get back at the 8 and 9-month point. They had weddings planned and trips planned and that kind of thing. So there's quality of life impacts as well. But make no mistake about it, there is no bigger compliment on earth than to be extended, to know you are the force across the joint force, that the President and the Secretary of Defense needs to be there to ensure we are deterring aggression, making sure the sea lanes of communication remain open. And these sailors willfully and understand that. We communicate that to them, and they put their life on hold to do those extensions. Regarding the loss of aircraft on board, the extension of the Truman those are not related in any way. When you fly thousands of combat sorties, on occasion there are going to be material failures. There are going to be things that happen in real combat that's happening in the Red Sea. It's going to result in some combat losses of those aircraft. And when those happen, and if there's human mistakes, they get thoroughly investigated. We look hard into that. We hold people accountable if that's necessary. But most importantly, we learn. And we grow as a force, and we put those lessons learned back into the system on each training cycle to make sure we're understanding what went wrong, to make sure we never make those mistakes again. And I don't want you to think that being extended had anything to do with the loss of the F-18s.
Well, we appreciate your answering that question, Admiral. They've been busy out there, certainly, according to the Pentagon and what you're telling us now. A massive drawdown in missiles specifically and rockets. What do we need? How much have we expended, and what do we need to replenish the munitions used against Yemen?
Well, you know, high-end munitions like Standard Missile Series, Standard Missile 2, SM-2, SM-6, SM-3, the missiles we shoot from our destroyers and cruisers are critical offensive and defensive weapons. And they're expensive, and we like to make sure when we expend one of those that it's against a target that really it required that level of capability to take out. So because of that, when, you know, low-cost drones are being shot at our ships, one-way UAVs, if you will, you know, we want to make sure we have matched the right response capability weapon system against that threat. So the Forward Strike Group, which is about to replace the Truman, it's still finishing up its final deployment preparations. We'll be deploying with a couple new missile systems. You can think about missiles about the size of a Hellfire missile. There are 2 program of records called the Coyote and the Roadrunner missile systems that will be on our destroyers. That missile is significantly cheaper, has great standoff capability. It'll be the first time we've employed them, and that strike group will be certified to actually use that weapon system. And what that does is saves our main weapons battery. And so the offensive weapons that we're having to use typically to defend ourselves, won't be as needed. So we're really happy about that. It's more cost effective, it's more appropriate, and the ship's captains have a lot of confidence they can defend them ships properly with a lower cost weapon system.